The Streets of Rage series has a lot to answer for. Not only was this popular side-scrolling beat-em-up series from Sega a worthy contender to other similar titles in the genre such as Double Dragon and Final Fight, but the series also built up a huge fan base that continued to grow over the years. Indeed, the fan support for this beloved series has continued long after Sega decided that it didn't want to make any more Streets of Rage games. Eventually, we would get an official 4th Streets of Rage game in 2020, a whopping 25 years after the release of Streets of Rage 3, and possibly being the only good thing that came out of the absolute shit show that was the year 2020. But in the meantime, the huge hiatus in the series would lead on to several unofficial fan games being made for Streets of Rage, including the infamous Streets of Rage Remake by Bomber Games, a lavishly created fan game that featured elements from the original 3 games in the series, along with a lot of new or reimagined elements. Despite Sega attempting to shut down the project, Remake is still going strong to this day, and I may very well make a video on this in the future. Other fan-made Streets of Rage games would be created from the beat-em-up engine called Open Beats of Rage that was created and named after the series. And that is what today's video is going to be all about, as myself, the Big Daddy D, will take a look at 5 different OpenBOR games that you really need to play. First, a little background history. OpenBOR would essentially take new or existing elements and assets and put them into a Streets of Rage style scrolling beat-em-up. The original game that Senile team worked on, entitled simply as Beats of Rage, would take character sprites from the King of Fighters series of games and use them as either characters you could play as or enemies and bosses you would fight against, and put these into a Streets of Rage style scrolling beat-em-up game. According to team leader Roel van Masbergen, Senile team spent approximately 9 months developing Beats of Rage, with an initial release in November 2003. Now, for obvious reasons, no attempts were made to advertise or promote the game, as Senile team really didn't want to have either Sega or SNK breathing down their necks. But the popularity of the game quickly spread through word of mouth, leading to more than 1 million copies of the game being downloaded, which was completely unexpected by the team, as they'd simply just made the game for fun and never believed that more than 10 people would ever play it. Beats of Rage would later get ported across to the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Nintendo Wii, the original Xbox, and the PlayStation Portable platforms, and it would receive significant mainstream media attention, being highlighted in gaming magazines such as G4, Xbox Gamer, and many others. Although Beats of Rage was intended to be a standalone game, the modular design of the in-house elements and engine proved to be extremely user-friendly. Other would-be game developers soon realised that they could replace assets with creations of their own, called mods. For example, it was possible to swap characters from the King of Fighters series to characters from the Street Fighter series, or the Mortal Kombat series for example, or any other games. With a bit of work, the engine allowed for the building of entirely new games. Seeing the potential in such an application, developer Kirby 2000 obtained open source code and licensing permission from Senile team in order to continue development on this engine. This new project was renamed Open Beats of Rage, or OpenBOR. Development of the Open Beats of Rage engine continues to this very day and has gathered new fans every year. Over the last few years there have been a plethora of OpenBOR games created that have been remakes and reimaginings of the Final Fight, Double Dragon and Golden Axe games, as well as games that have been about popular franchises such as Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as well as entirely new original games. And of course, there have been several Streets of Rage games created on OpenBOR as well, because let's be honest, it was Streets of Rage that got this started to begin with. So, with that in mind, let's finally get into the main subject of this video. These are 5 OpenBOR games you really need to play. Golden Axe Legend. I'm sure that most people are familiar with Sega's Golden Axe series of games. The classic hack and slash, sword and sorcery beat 'em up was a big part of Sega's success in the late 80s and early 90s. But here in Golden Axe Legend, we have all 3 of the original games melded into one storyline. The game's creator, Pierre Wolf, who is likely going to get mentioned a few times if I cover any more OpenBOR games across these videos, has put together all of the characters, baddies, levels and magic from the original trilogy into one huge game, with a number of tweaks and modifications to improve the overall gameplay, and a stunning, much more orchestral version of the original music soundtrack. You can even have 4 players together at the same time, bringing a real feel of an old school arcade game to the proceedings. It does use a lot of existing assets from the previous arcade and Mega Drive games, but there's also a fair amount of new elements in here as well to make it feel fresh and new. This is a great game to spend an afternoon or 2 on, to rekindle some of that old Golden Axe magic. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. We first touched upon the OpenBOR engine here on the Big Daddy D reviews when we looked at the history of He-Man video games, and out of all of them it was this superb fan-made He-Man game which ended up being the absolute best video game, featuring the various goodies and baddies from the popular toy and cartoon series. And it still is at the time of recording this video. For those of you that have followed my channel for a while, it should come as no surprise to you that I was a massive He-Man fan during the 80s, and let's be honest, I still am. So imagine my absolute delight when the game opened up with a perfect rendition of the classic intro from the 80s television series. And the nostalgia didn't end there, my friends, as the art, animation and music are all lifted directly from the Filmation cartoon. With up to 4 players at once, He-Man and a number of his friends and allies, and even some of his enemies, can fight alongside each other as they take on the might of Hordak and the evil Horde. And there's even Lion-O from Thundercats in there as well, if that isn't enough for you. Each character has their own weapons, abilities and special attacks. Not only do we get some side-scrolling fighting stages, but there's also some vehicle-based shooting stages, time-based puzzle mazes, and even a few escort missions where you must prevent someone from being attacked. This all helps to keep the game fresh and varied and interesting. The game admittedly is a little glitchy in places, but when you get a fan game that's as well presented as this, you can forgive that. This is a must-play for all fans of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Double Dragon Reloaded Alternative Edition. Simply put, this is the ultimate version of the first 2 Double Dragon games, with a load of additional extras. Not only can you play as either of the Lee brothers, but there are plenty of new characters to choose from, along with new weapons, new locations, new special moves, and numerous different game modes. Included amongst these new characters include numerous bosses from the games, along with several of the WWF wrestlers from another game that Tecmo Japan originally worked on, WWF Superstars. so you can play as the likes of Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man Randy Savage, and many others from that game, and proceed to pile drive and guerrilla press your way through the bad guys. Even the massive Abobo now looks tiny compared to the size of the mighty Andre the Giant. The game also fixes a lot of the issues that the older games had, including some of the slowdown issues, and it also refined a lot of the mechanics. It even had an update later on where it added all the special moves from the Game Boy Advance title, Double Dragon Advance. Despite all this, it still feels and plays like a Double Dragon game. The core formula of what made the original games so popular has not been lost here. Although having said that, after playing on this game, you will find it difficult going back to the original arcade and home versions afterwards. Justice League Legacy. This game contains a huge character roster, and even now it's still being updated and expanded upon by its creator, Zed Victor, or Z Victor, however you pronounce that. He is incredibly active on the OpenBOR community and normally has several projects on the go at once. He's even got his own YouTube channel, which is well worth a follow, and he'll often do polls on asking the fans about what characters they'd like to see being added next. Each character has their own unique moves and attacks, as well as numerous different costumes and attires to choose from. There are multiple game modes and campaigns to play through that stay true to the storylines of the various DC comics and animated shows. There's even vehicle sections in the game as well, where Batman will drive his Batmobile, or Wonder Woman will take to the skies in her invisible plane. You can switch characters in between levels if you like, so that you can experiment with different characters without losing any credits. 16-bit superhero video games were a bit hit and miss back in the 90s, but here with this title, it's like we've got the game that we always wanted. Definitely give this a go, and I'm sure that I'll be covering more of Z Victor's other games here in the future. Streets of Rage 2X. Of course, I could hardly do a video about open Beats of Rage games without mentioning a fan game based on the series that started all this. Could I? Not really. And believe me, there are numerous different Streets of Rage fan games out there that have been made on the OpenBOR engine. But for me, this one is the best of the bunch. Streets of Rage 2X combines elements, characters and levels from the classic trilogy of Streets of Rage games that Sega made back in the 90s, but then adds in so much more. The menu options offer up a huge amount of customization, including behaviour of the AI, or being able to switch between different mechanics from the previous games. Up to 4 players can join in with this game, including an AI controlled partner. The game has got one of the best branching path systems that I've ever seen in a scrolling beat 'em up, and you can often alternate between playing levels from either Streets of Rage 2 or 3. There's also an additional mode called Rebellion, where you can play as any of the enemies in the game. Everyone from Mr. X himself and his bodyguard Shiva to low-ranking members like Galcia and Donovan, and then try to take on the crime syndicate yourself. But what the biggest improvement that Streets of Rage 2X has over the original games is the combat system. Not only has the speed been increased, but the amount of combination moves that you can hit the enemies with has been dramatically increased. You can even juggle your opponents and continue raining blows down on them whilst they're still in mid-air. The star system from Streets of Rage 3 has also been completely reinvented, and it's a lot better for it. Not only can you acquire stars a lot quicker than what you could in the original game, but you can use these to perform additional special moves or save all 3 stars up for a devastating super attack known as a Rage attack. And these will quickly wipe out an enemy's energy bar. These are particularly good against boss characters, but be warned, because the boss characters have got rage moves of their own, and they will not hesitate to use them. This isn't the Streets of Rage that you remember from back in the 90s. Oh no, it's better. But despite all these changes and tweaks, it still feels like a Streets of Rage game fundamentally at its core. You might be hard pressed to decide if this game, or Streets of Rage 4, is now your new favourite in the series. The creator of this title, F Games, is still making enhancements to the game at the moment, with the latest version due to be known as Streets of Rage X, which will also feature routes, enemies and items from the first Streets of Rage game as well. So I'm looking forward to playing on that at some point in the future. F Games are also highly active in the OpenBOR community and on social media, so be sure to also check out their YouTube channel and Twitter page for further updates. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little look at the OpenBOR engine and its various games. I'll try to include the links to some of these games in the video description below so that you can actually download and play them for yourself. I might even put together a second video if this one turns out to be popular. If you have enjoyed this video, then please do take the time to leave a like and a comment. If there's any Beats of Rage games that you'd like me to include in the next video, ones I might have missed, ones I might not even have played at, then by all means leave those suggestions in the comments section. Please also consider sharing this video across all your various social media platforms, in particular with anything that's got anything related to retro gaming, OpenBOR, Sega, SNK, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Double Dragon, any of those sort of communities, and help to spread the word of the channel. And whilst you're at it, why not subscribe to the channel as well in order to see other videos just like this. But for now, thank you very much for stopping by the Big Daddy D Reviews channel, and we'll catch you again next time.